On today's video, we'll consider the question, why are doctors in general so slow, so very slow to embrace the victory over diabetes that many people are seeing by the hundreds of thousands when they adopt a keto or low-carb diet? Why don't the doctors get it? Well, some do, of course, but sadly many do not. We'll also take a look at a husband and wife who both had terrible problems with diabetes. The husband's A1C was over 14. And his wife's A1C was around 8. After 4 months of a changed lifestyle, their A1Cs didn't just improve, but they've become fully normal. Their blood pressures have dropped dramatically, they've lost weight, they're feeling terrific. What did they do to get these results? These and other diabetic insights coming up. Before we get to our main program, I want to share with you an exciting new product that we're offering. As I create more and more video episodes in the Beat Diabetes series, I've decided that by grouping my videos into several different categories and putting them on flash drives, I'll make it much easier for you, and especially for you newly diagnosed diabetics who are desperately searching for answers, and you need those answers in a hurry. For now, I'm offering 4 different flash drives that will include 4 different categories of videos. These categories include my flagship series, Overcome Runaway Blood Sugar, a series of videos on many of the interviews that I've done, a series involving the blood sugar tests that Benedict and I do, and a series centered on the idea what a newly diagnosed diabetic needs to know. What can you do with a flash drive? Well, of course, you can put it into the USB slot on your computer and play the videos right off your computer. Also, many televisions have a USB slot these days, and with that type of TV, you should be able to play these videos on your television. Many DVD players and Roku boxes can also play videos from a flash drive. So here's a chance for you to watch Beat Diabetes, not on the tiny screen of your phone, but on your living room television or your desktop computer monitor. There'll be a link in the description which will take you to the page where you can order these flash drives if you live in America. Now, if you live outside the U.S., I'll soon be setting up a way to download these different video series and get them on your computer or phone. All right, here is a comment left by a doctor. This always interests me. And, people, I hate to say it, but some of the people who make comments in our videos, they just give you the idea they can't stand doctors. They think they're all in a big conspiracy to do harm. I've never believed that. I mean, doctors they come in all forms, good, the bad, and the ugly. And so, some are better than others. But I've never believed there's some great doctoral conspiracy to try to rip people off. But this person says this: I am a doctor, and I'm pretty cynical and well aware of how money drives everything, but I don't really think doctors don't want you to get well. They have simply accepted that patients don't get well, and their societies and boards and peers and employers basically dictate a narrow path that they can tread while practicing medicine. They do have pressure on them, this doctor is saying. Or he's saying we have pressure on us, we doctors. He says, so if it's a choice between deviating from the path to chance getting a patient better but risk being disciplined versus towing the line and prescribing the meds with the typical poor results, the choice is pretty clear. There's no incentive to innovate, but it's perfectly safe to just follow the rules no matter how unsatisfying the results. Well, I have to say that is sad, because there is a motivation to innovate and be a little different, be a bit of a maverick. And the motivation should be, I want to help these guys. I want to help these patients. And even if somebody rebukes me or disciplines me, so be it. I want to help these patients. And, that's really what love is all about, is wanting to help people, wanting to bless people, wanting to help people get better. And so I'm not sure I agree totally with the argument that, well, the issue is that they don't have an incentive to innovate. They should have an incentive coming from their hearts, which is the desire to help. But my feeling is that there's another issue at play here with why doctors aren't more mavericks and don't pay more attention to nutrition. And the other factor that I consider to be really big is the issue of bias and how difficult it is to admit that pretty much the whole world has been wrong for about 50 years or so, starting from the 70s. Really, it began in the 60s, but really it started gaining ground in the 70s on up through just recently. The whole world and all the medical world and all the nutritional world and practically everybody and their mamas were saying, sugar is no problem. The problem is fat, nasty fat, ugly fat, mean fat, saturated fat, hate fat, fat'll make you fat. So just give up on the fat and don't worry about the sugar. Sugar is not a big deal, but fat, oh, that fat is terrible. Well, we were wrong. The world was wrong. The doctors were wrong. The nutritionists were wrong. Fat has never been the problem. And as a result of allowing people to make product and food companies to make low-fat products, they just jammed in extra sugar and they proudly boasted on their packages low-fat. And everybody said, oh, I've got to get that. I've got to get the low-fat yogurt. I've got to get the low-fat cottage cheese. I've got to get the low-fat regular cheese. I've got to get the low-fat milk. And almost all those products had much more sugar, low-fat salad dressing, low-fat this, low-fat that. We were wrong. We were dead wrong. And the explosion of diabetes, the explosion of obesity, the explosion of cardiovascular events and issues is testimony to the fact that we were dead wrong. And the studies are coming out again and again and again. At first, people were so radical against fat, they said nuts are bad for you. Stay away from the nuts. And there's one prominent doctor who's written a book about diabetes. He doesn't even like nuts. And he doesn't even like avocados. He's a vegan, but he says, oh, you got to watch those avocados and those nuts because they have so much fat. We were dead wrong. Now, the problem is, if you've spent the last 30 years or more saying that fat is the real problem, sugar is not much of a problem or hardly a problem, and carbs are not an issue, if you spent 30 years saying that, it's going to be very difficult to back off and say, oops, I think I was wrong. Now, there is a guy that did that. His name is Tim Noakes. He's a scientist and a sports nutritionist in South Africa, and he's very popular among the low-carb folks. And Tim Noakes wrote a book encouraging runners, long-distance runners, to load up on the carbs and saying how that high-carb diet was the way to go for sports nutrition and for endurance and all that. And he was the high-carb guru of South Africa. And after a while, he did some research, and I think he may have come down with diabetes himself. I'm not sure. But he concluded, I was wrong. Low fat is not the way to go. We should go low carb. And he's going around now giving talks and writing books and saying the exact opposite of what he said 30 years ago. Well, I admire that. I admire the ability to say I was wrong. And he was wrong earlier. He's right now. And the research is showing it again and again and again. And just here on Beat Diabetes, our little channel, we're just getting testimonies coming in every day from people that have dropped their A1C, have lost weight, their triglycerides go down, their blood pressure gets better. I mean, it's almost a study all by itself just to look at all the people that have been helped through this channel. So, anyway, I think that's one problem with the doctors. Not that they're all in a conspiracy, but some of these older doctors, they just cannot admit that for the last 30 or 40 years, they've been saying the exact wrong thing. So, anyway, but there are some great doctors. There are a lot of doctors that are getting a clue these days. So don't be afraid to go to the doctor. You should all be seeing a doctor regularly. Just pick out a good one and not a stinker. Okay, well, here's another comment. This person says, thank you, Dennis. All right, this is from a man, but he's speaking for himself and his wife. This is so cool. Love it. He says, you've inspired us. 4 months ago, my A1C at the doctor's office was a frightening 14.5. 14.5, folks, that's just about as bad as it gets. I know, we had a guy on that had 17, but 14.5 is horrible. It's the kind of diabetes that's killing you every day, and it's not going to take too long. So he had a terrible 14.5. He says, my wife's was 8.0. That's bad enough. That's significant. But 14.5. So he says at that time I had many of the symptoms of diabetes. My vision was deteriorating. I had frequent urination and thirst. I was prescribed insulin and Januvia. My wife was prescribed metformin and Januvia. Injecting myself in the doctor's office with insulin was a heck of a wake-up call. Well, yeah, for a lot of people that is, when they finally have to poke themselves with that needle and send that insulin into their body. It scares them to death. And in a way, it's kind of good. Not that it's wrong to take insulin, but if it can motivate you to change your diet for the better, that's good. He says, we decided to work hard to improve our health. Love it. Very simple thought, very simple sentence, but so powerful. We decided, by an act of our will, we decided that we were going to work hard to improve our health. Great, great decision, my friend. After heavy research, he says, we have been on keto and intermittent fasting for 4 months. Today's health examinations reveal that both our A1c's were identical at 5.2. Can you believe it? He was at 14.5, his wife was at 8.0, and now they're both doing intermittent fasting, they're both doing keto, and now they're both at 5.2. It's like they're following each other's footsteps. And when they change their diet, they're eating the same things. That's one cool thing about when a husband and wife do it together. They're eating exactly the same thing. And lo and behold, their A1c's were exactly identical, 5.2. How beautiful is that? That is so cool. He says, I stopped taking any diabetic medications in mid-July. My wife was able to reduce her meds by 2/3. Both our blood pressures dropped dramatically, and we were able to reduce our blood pressure medications. I've lost 41 pounds. She's lost 33 pounds. We're able to exercise, feel better, and we look forward to the future. Well, it's one of those things where you say, you couldn't make this up. This is so good. This is so awesome. And, you know, if this was the only one, you might say, well, this is a freak happenstance. This is not normal. But I'm just seeing reports like this all the time. How can anybody argue with that? You know, some people are so dead set against a low-carb diet that even if you put this right in their face and say, listen to what happened to this couple, they won't like it. They'll say, well, they got it the wrong way. They should take back their healing. They should take back the recovery, and now they should do it my way. Well, hey, let them do it their way. They got good numbers, and I'm all for good numbers, and I'm all for improvement. If you want to do it the vegan way, I don't think that's the best, but if it's helping you, great. If you're a vegetarian, it's helping you, great. Just get those numbers down, because when your numbers are high, you are living on the edge of a precipice. You are living on the edge of a cliff. You're doing the dance of life on the edge of a cliff. And you could fall over at any moment and come to a bad end. Get the numbers down first. Then if you want to experiment with some different diets, as long as you keep them low carb, and you say, well, I think I'll try the vegan for a while, well, so be it. But get the numbers down first, whatever you do. And I have to say this. I think if keto and intermittent fasting and low carb and intermittent fasting, well, let me put it this way. This news is bound to get out eventually. I think the day will come when it will be beyond dispute that this is the premier way to attack and conquer diabetes. I mean, there's a lot of us know it already. Many of us, many of you on this channel that watch me regularly, you know that, and I know it. But there's a lot of ignorance as well. And a lot of people think keto is some kind of a cultish diet or some kind of a fad diet. But the results are so amazing, so phenomenal, and so many that there's a time coming when the whole world's going to know it. I may not live to see that time, or maybe I will. I don't know, but it's coming. And so that's exciting. And let me say one more thing. If there was a pill that could give this kind of results, imagine if you go to a doctor and you've got a 14.5. He says, well, I'm going to prescribe a pill. It's going to cost you $20 a month. And if you take this pill, you should be fine. And so you take the pill, you don't change your diet, you don't exercise, you don't do anything, but you take your little $20 a month pill every day, and you go back 3 months later and you've gone from a 14.5 to a 5.2. You say, Doc, that is a miracle medicine. You're telling me I dropped from 14 to 5, 9 points in my A1C by taking this little pill? That's amazing, Doc. The whole world needs to know about this pill. Well, of course, there is no such pill. But there is a dietary change that can do better than any pill that can be given to you. So people that are all grumpy with the low-carb diet, the keto diet, I don't like it, it's a fad, it's for weirdos. You ought to just open your eyes and open your nose and smell the coffee and open your eyes and see the testimonies, because there are people walking around practically every nation in the world. And this is not just coming from America. I'm hearing this from Pakistanis and from Israelis and people all over the world, Australia, England, Canada, everywhere. This works. Okay, let's look at another comment. This person has had serious cardiovascular problems. He says 5 clogged heart arteries, 2 of them plugged for too long of a distance to bypass. He said, I had uncontrollable type 2 diabetes at least 10 years. 4 months after surgery, a physical that I took declared my ejection fraction was at 37%. But he said before surgery, it was at 10%. Now, ejection fraction is how much of the blood in the left ventricle of your heart normally is going to be pumped out with a single heartbeat. And normally it should be somewhere between 55 and 70% of that blood is going to be pumped out with one heartbeat. He said before his surgery, he was at 10%. He was only pumping out 10% of the blood that was in his heart. Then it got up to 37%, which was better. He says, about this time, I started a healthy plant-based diet. He puts healthy in quotes, per Joel Fuhrman's book. A year later, the cardiologist was happy. He got his A1C down, but he was taking 2,000 milligrams of metformin, and he got it down to 6.3. His ejection fraction was at 37%. Now, again, normal starts at 55, goes up to about 70%, so he still had a pretty poor ejection fraction. That is, his heart wasn't pumping out blood very well. Switched to a keto diet for a couple of months after that, and the next cardio he did, the tech doing the echo said very quickly, your heart looks better. And after the treadmill, the cardiologist moved me up to 48% for his ejection fraction, so he jumped up, getting closer to normal. Still not normal, but getting closer. He said, now I have an A1C of 5.2 with no meds. Now, before, he doesn't say what his worst was. Then when he went to the Fuhrman diet, he got to 6.3, but that was taking 2,000 milligrams of metformin. Now, by doing keto, he's taking no meds anymore, and he's at 5.2. So that's amazing. He says, I have no proof why the change, but the cardiologist's words were simply that my heart had to be getting more blood. I'm 72 years old, and 2 years, they don't want him to come back for 2 more years. He says, I think that's significant. Well, I do too. And he says, keto will be for the rest of my life. Well, how ironic is that? You know, so many people say, oh, you do keto, you may fix your diabetes, but you'll have heart attacks and, you know, you'll be dead in a couple of years of heart problems. But this man's heart got considerably better doing keto than he had on any other diet. Standard diet sure wasn't working. Fuhrman's diet helped him some, but keto helped him more. And he went down to a 5.2 A1C. His ejection fraction for his heart was much better. And yet some people say, well, keto is the worst possible thing you can do for your heart. No, it's not. If it's true keto, or if it's really low carb, it's one of the best things you can do for your heart. He says he had uncontrolled diabetes for 10 years. Now, without any meds at all, 5.2. Well, my thought, once again, is if it works, it works. If what you're doing works, it's great. I won't argue with you. I won't try to change you. I won't try to debate with you. You know, some people list on my channel in the comments, well, I've been doing it this other way, and it's working for me, and I've got a good A1C. I don't debate with them. And normally, I'll allow the comments to stand. Now, if they try to preach a long sermon, I'll delete it. I don't allow sermons in my comments, so I'll delete those long sermons. But as long as they just want to say, you know, I've been trying this vegan diet, vegetarian diet, and here's what I eat, and I've got my A1C down, good for you, my friend, good for you. So I'm not against doing it some other way. I have my preferences, but if it works, it works.